The stars had never looked so cold as they did through the viewport of the diplomatic station Harmony. Captain Damon Cross adjusted his dress uniform for the third time, his reflection staring back from the polished metal walls. Today would determine whether humanity and the Crystalline Empire would find peace or descend into total war. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. 3 months of failed negotiations had brought both species to the edge of annihilation. The Crystalline Empire, with their superior technology and ancient wisdom, viewed humans as aggressive upstarts. Humanity saw them as arrogant overlords who refused to acknowledge their right to expand among the stars. Admiral Torres approached him with heavy steps, her weathered face showing the strain of endless diplomatic battles. "Cross, I need you sharp, today. One wrong move from either side and we're looking at a war that could wipe out half the galaxy." Damon nodded respectfully. He had been chosen as part of the human delegation not just for his piloting skills, but for his ability to read people and situations. His dark eyes held intelligence that had gotten him out of more tight spots than he could count. "I understand, Admiral. What's our position if negotiations fail?" "We fight," she said simply. "But let's hope it doesn't come to that." The main conference hall was a marvel of engineering, designed to accommodate both human and crystalline physiology. Soft ethereal music played in the background meant to calm tensions, but Damon could feel the hostility radiating from both sides as delegates took their positions. The Crystalline Empire's representatives entered like something out of a dream. Their translucent skin caught the light, creating rainbow patterns that shifted with their movements. But it was the figure who entered last that made Damon's breath catch in his throat. Princess Zara Velthari moved with a grace that seemed to defy gravity itself. Her skin shimmered like liquid starlight, and her eyes held depths that reminded him of nebulae he had flown through in the outer rim. She wore robes that seemed to be woven from cosmic dust, flowing around her perfect form. When she glanced in his direction, their eyes met for just a moment, and Damon felt something electric pass between them. High Counselor Nethys, an ancient crystalline with features sharp as cut diamonds, began the proceedings. His voice resonated with centuries of authority. "We gather once more to discuss the human expansion into sectors that have belonged to our empire for millennia." Admiral Torres stood firm. "Those sectors contain resources vital to human survival. We're not asking for charity. We're offering fair trade agreements." The arguments continued, the same points repeated in increasingly hostile tones. But Damon found himself stealing glances at Princess Zara. Each time their eyes met, he felt that same jolt of electricity. She seemed to be fighting the same attraction, her perfect features betraying subtle signs of interest. During a recess, delegates mingled in smaller groups. Damon found himself near the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The soft sound of footsteps made him turn, and his heart raced when he saw Princess Zara approaching. "You are Captain Cross," she said, her voice like music itself. "I have heard stories of your piloting skills." "Your Highness," he replied, offering a respectful bow. "And I have heard of your wisdom in matters of diplomacy." She moved closer and he caught her scent, something like starflowers and cosmic wind. "Tell me, Captain, do you believe our species are truly destined to be enemies?" Her question was loaded with meaning. Damon chose his words carefully. "I believe that understanding can bridge any gap, no matter how wide it seems." A smile played at her lips, and he noticed how they seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "You speak with the heart of a poet, not a warrior." "Perhaps the best warriors understand that some battles are worth avoiding," he replied, stepping closer. The space between them crackled with tension. "And some connections are worth exploring despite the risks," she whispered, her eyes never leaving his. Before either could say more, the sound of approaching footsteps forced them apart. High Counselor Nethys appeared, his ancient features disapproving. "Princess, your presence is required in the main hall." She nodded gracefully but gave Damon one last meaningful look. "Perhaps we will have another opportunity to discuss philosophy, Captain." As she glided away, Damon realized his hands were trembling slightly. In all his years as a pilot, Facing death among the stars, nothing had affected him like this brief encounter with the alien princess. The afternoon session grew more heated. Trade disputes escalated into accusations of territorial violations. Threats were made, thinly veiled behind diplomatic language. But through it all, Damon was acutely aware of Zara's presence. Every movement she made, every word she spoke in, her melodic language to her advisors drew his attention. During another break, he found himself in a quiet corridor when she appeared as if from nowhere. This time, she was alone. "Your people are passionate," she observed, moving closer than protocol would allow. "Your people are beautiful," he replied, his voice husky with desire. The air between them shimmered with possibility. She reached out, her fingers barely touching his hand, but the contact sent fire through his veins. Her skin was warm despite its crystalline appearance, soft and incredibly smooth. "This is dangerous," she breathed, but she didn't pull away. "The most worthwhile things usually are," he replied, his thumb tracing across her knuckles. For a moment that lasted eternity, they stood there, two beings from different worlds connected by something that transcended politics and species. But reality crashed back when voices echoed from the main hall. "I must go," she said reluctantly. "When can I see you again?" The words escaped before he could stop them. She paused at the corridor entrance. "Deck 7, Observation Lounge, midnight, if the stars align." The remainder of the day's negotiations ended in deadlock. Both sides retired to their quarters with threats hanging in the air like dark clouds. But as Damon lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, all he could think about was midnight and the promise of seeing those mesmerizing eyes again. When the ship's chronometer showed 5 minutes to midnight, he made his way to Deck 7. The observation lounge was empty except for the vast starfield beyond the transparent aluminum windows. He waited, wondering if she would come, if their brief encounter had meant as much to her as it had to him. At exactly midnight, she appeared, like a vision, having changed from her formal diplomatic robes into something more flowing and revealing. The outfit hugged her curves while allowing her skin to catch and reflect the starlight. She moved toward him with predatory grace, and Damon felt his pulse quicken. "You came?" he said softly. "I had to," she replied, stopping just close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "Something about you calls to me, human. Something I cannot ignore." The confession hung between them, dangerous and intoxicating. Outside, the stars wheeled in their ancient dance, bearing witness to the beginning of something that would either unite two species or tear the galaxy apart. The observation lounge felt like a world unto itself, suspended between the stars and reality. Damon stepped closer to Zara, drawn by an invisible force that seemed to pull at his very soul. The starlight streaming through the massive viewport painted silver patterns across her luminescent skin, making her appear even more ethereal and desirable. "Your diplomats believe humans are too primitive to understand true beauty," she whispered, her voice carrying a hint of rebellion. "But looking at you now, I think they are the ones who lack understanding." Damon's heart hammered against his ribs as she moved even closer, close enough that he could see the intricate patterns that swirled beneath her translucent skin, like living art. "And your people think we're nothing but violent conquerors. Maybe we're both wrong about each other." Her laugh was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Perhaps we should conduct our own diplomatic mission, Captain. A more intimate negotiation." The suggestion hung between them, loaded with promise and danger. Damon reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and gently touched her cheek. Her skin was impossibly soft, warm with an inner light that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. "Zara." He breathed her name like a prayer. "No titles," she whispered, leaning into his touch. "Just two souls finding each other among the stars." When their lips met, it was like colliding galaxies creating new worlds. Her kiss was fire and silk, passion and tenderness combined. She tasted like starfruit and promises, and Damon felt himself drowning in sensations he had never experienced. Her hands found their way to his chest, tracing the hard muscles beneath. His uniform, and he marveled at how perfectly they fit together despite coming from different worlds. They broke apart only when breathing became necessary, both gasping as if they had run across star systems. Zara's eyes had darkened to the color of deep space, and her skin glowed brighter where he had touched her. "This is madness," she whispered, but her hands remained on his chest. "The best kind," he replied, his thumb tracing her lower lip. "I've flown through asteroid fields and battled pirates, but nothing has ever felt as dangerous or as right as this." She smiled, an expression that could have powered star drives. "My betrothal ceremony to Lord Khyven Mordak is in 3 days. It will seal the alliance between 2 crystalline houses." The mention of her arranged marriage hit Damon like a meteorite impact. "Do you love him?" "Love?" She laughed bitterly. "Love is not a luxury afforded to royalty. Khyven is cold, calculating, and sees me as nothing more than a beautiful ornament to display his power." Damon's jaw clenched. The thought of this magnificent woman being treated as property ignited a fury in him that burned hotter than plasma engines. "You deserve better than that. You deserve to be cherished, worshipped, loved the way a goddess should be loved." Her breath caught at his words, and for a moment, vulnerability replaced the regal composure she usually wore. "And could you love a goddess, Captain Damon Cross? Could you love someone whose very existence might start a war?" "I already do," he said simply, and the truth of it shook him to his core. The next 3 hours passed like minutes as they talked, shared stories, and explored the growing connection between them. Zara told him about her childhood on the crystal cities of Velthan Prime, how she had always felt trapped by expectations and duty. Damon shared his dreams of exploring the furthest reaches of space, of finding wonders that no human had ever seen. When dawn approached according to the ship's chronometer, they reluctantly parted, but not before making plans to meet again. Over the next 2 days, their secret meetings became more frequent and more intense. They found hidden alcoves throughout the diplomatic station, stealing moments between official sessions. Each encounter deepened their connection and their desire for each other. Commander Jade Morrison, Damon's longtime friend and wingman, noticed the change in him immediately. Her sharp green eyes missed nothing, and she cornered him after a particularly tense negotiation session. "All right, Cross, spill it," she demanded, her red hair catching the corridor lights as she blocked his path. "You've been walking around like someone drunk on Regellian whiskey for the past 2 days. Damon attempted innocence. "I don't know what you mean, Jade." "Bull," she said flatly. "I've known you for 8 years. You've got that same look you had when you discovered that ancient star map on Kepler Station. Except this time, I'm betting, your discovery has curves and probably speaks in musical tones." Heat crept up Damon's neck. Jade's intuition was legendary throughout the fleet. "It's complicated. It always is with you." Her expression softened slightly. "Just be careful, Damon. These aliens might be beautiful, but they're not human. Their loyalties lie elsewhere." If only she knew how wrong she was about Zara's loyalties, Damon thought. But he couldn't tell Jade about their relationship, not yet. That evening he met Zara in a maintenance bay that she had somehow gained access to. The cramped space was filled with humming machinery and the soft glow of power conduits, creating an intimate atmosphere despite the industrial setting. "I have news," she said without preamble, though her voice trembled slightly. "Lord Khyven has arrived early. The ceremony has been moved to tomorrow night." The words hit Damon like a physical blow. "No, we need more time." "Time is a luxury we never had," she replied, moving into his arms with desperate urgency. "But we have tonight." What followed was a night of passion that redefined everything Damon thought he knew about desire. Zara's touch was electric, her kisses burned like stellar fire, and her responses to his caresses proved that despite their different origins, their bodies were perfectly compatible. They made love with the desperation of 2 people who knew they might never have another chance, pouring years of longing into hours of ecstasy. In the quiet afterward, as they lay entwined among the humming machinery, Zara traced patterns on his chest with her fingertips. "Tell me about Earth," she whispered. "Tell me about the place that created someone like you." Damon described blue skies and green forests, of oceans that stretched beyond horizons and mountains that touched the clouds. He told her about human resilience, how his species had clawed their way from a single planet to the stars through determination and courage. "We never give up," he said, his voice fierce with conviction. "When we love something, we fight for it with everything we have, even if it seems impossible," she asked. "Especially then." He tilted her chin up so their eyes met. "Run away with me, Zara. Tonight. We can take my ship and disappear into the outer systems. I know places where no one would ever find us." For a moment, hope flared in her eyes like a newborn star. Then reality reasserted itself and she shook her head sadly. "My people would hunt us to the ends of the galaxy, and yours would never forgive you for stealing an alien princess. We would spend our lives as fugitives." "I don't care," Damon said fiercely. "Let them hunt. Let them chase. As long as I have you, I can face anything." Her smile was heartbreaking in its beauty and sadness. "You magnificent, impossible man. Do you really believe love can conquer everything?" "I believe we can make it conquer everything," he replied with the confidence that had carried him through countless battles. But even as they held each other, both knew that morning would bring harsh realities. Lord Khyven Mordek had arrived, a tall, coldly handsome crystalline noble whose reputation for ruthlessness preceded him. Damon had caught a glimpse of him during the evening's diplomatic dinner, and everything about the man radiated controlled menace. "He suspects something," Zara had whispered during a brief moment when they passed near each other in the corridor. "He watches me constantly now." The final day of negotiations dawned with an atmosphere of barely controlled hostility. The talks had devolved into little more than veiled threats and posturing. Admiral Torres looked exhausted, and High Counselor Nethys appeared ready to declare war at the slightest provocation. But Damon barely registered the political maneuvering. His attention was focused entirely on Zara, who sat beside her intended husband with perfect royal composure. Only he could see the subtle signs of distress, the way her hands occasionally trembled, the tightness around her eyes, the careful distance she maintained from Khyven. Lord Khyven himself was everything Damon had expected and worse. The crystalline noble spoke little, but when he did, his words carried the chill of absolute zero. His eyes, a cold blue-white like Arctic ice, seemed to catalog everything and everyone as either useful or expendable. During a recess, Khyven approached Damon with the fluid grace of a predator stalking prey. "Captain Cross," he said, his accent making the human language sound sharp and dangerous. "I understand you are considered quite skilled among your kind." "I do my job," Damon replied carefully. "Indeed." Khyven's smile was all teeth and no warmth. "I hope you continue to focus on that job. It would be unfortunate if your attention were to wander to matters that do not concern you." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Damon met the alien's cold stare without flinching. "I always give my full attention to things that matter." Khyven's eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment Damon thought the noble might abandon subtlety altogether. But then High Counselor Nethys called for the session to resume, and the moment passed. As the day wore on, Damon felt the weight of approaching doom. In just a few hours, Zara would be bound to a man who saw her as property, and any chance for their love would be lost forever. But then he remembered his own words to her. Humans never give up, especially when the odds seem impossible. As the final session ended in another deadlock, Damon made a decision that would either save their love or destroy both their worlds. He was done playing by everyone else's rules. It was time to show the galaxy what human determination really meant. The ceremonial hall aboard the diplomatic station had been transformed into a vision of crystalline splendor. Ethereal music floated through the air while holographic displays created the illusion of being surrounded by the aurora fields of Velthan Prime. Hundreds of delegates from both species had gathered to witness what was supposed to be a union that would strengthen crystalline political alliances. Damon stood at the back of the hall in his dress uniform, his jaw clenched as he watched the pre-ceremony preparations. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to act, but he forced himself to wait for the right moment. Commander Jade Morrison stood beside him, her green eyes sharp with concern. "Whatever you're planning, Damon, don't," she whispered urgently. "This isn't worth starting an interstellar war." "Some things are worth any price," he replied quietly, his dark eyes never leaving the altar where Zara would soon pledge herself to a man she didn't love. At the front of the hall, Princess Zara appeared like a vision from a dream. Her ceremonial gown seemed to be woven from captured starlight itself, flowing around her perfect form and making her skin glow with inner radiance. But Damon could see what others missed: the subtle tremor in her hands, the way her eyes searched the crowd until they found his, the barely contained desperation beneath her royal composure. Lord Kyvan Mordak stood waiting at the altar, resplendent, in his house colors of ice blue and silver. His cold beauty was undeniable, but his smile as he watched Zara approach was that of a collector admiring a new acquisition. High Counselor Nethys began the ancient ceremony, his voice resonating with centuries of tradition. "We gather today to witness the joining of two noble houses," Nethys intoned. "A union that will strengthen our empire and bring prosperity to our people." Damon's hand moved to the plasma pistol at his side. He had no plan beyond stopping this travesty, but his human instincts told him that sometimes action mattered more than strategy. As Nethys continued the ceremony, asking for any who would speak against the union to come forward or forever hold their peace, Damon stepped into the aisle. "I object," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent hall. Gasps echoed through the assembly. Admiral Torres's face went pale with horror, while several crystalline nobles rose from their seats in outrage. But Damon only had eyes for Zara, whose face had transformed with sudden hope and terror combined. "Captain Cross," High Counselor Nethys said icily, "you have no standing in this ceremony. Return to your place." "I have every standing," Damon replied, walking steadily toward the altar. "Because I love her and she loves me." The hall erupted in chaos. Crystalline nobles shouted in outrage, while human delegates tried to distance themselves from what they saw as madness. But Lord Kyvan's reaction was the most dangerous. His hand moved to his ceremonial blade and his eyes promised death. "You dare!" Kyvan snarled, his perfect features twisted with fury. "You pathetic human dare to claim what belongs to me?" "She doesn't belong to anyone," Damon shot back, reaching the altar. "Zara is not property to be traded between houses." Zara stepped between them, her eyes blazing with newfound courage. "He speaks the truth," she declared, her voice ringing clear despite the chaos around them. "I will not be bound to a man who sees me as nothing more than a political tool." Kyvan's face contorted with rage and his blade cleared its sheath in a flash of deadly steel. "Then you will both die for this insult." But Damon was faster. His plasma pistol was in his hand before Kyvan could complete his strike, the weapon's hum cutting through the noise of the crowd. "I don't think so." The standoff lasted only seconds before General Raven Blackwood, the human military strategist who had remained silent throughout the negotiations, stepped forward. Her silver hair gleamed under the ceremonial lights and her weathered face was set with determination. "Enough," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in the void. "This ends now, before blood is spilled that cannot be taken back." High Counselor Nethys turned his ancient gaze on her. "General Blackwood, your subordinate has committed an act that borders on declaration of war." "Has he?" Blackwood asked coolly. "Or has he simply demonstrated something both our species have forgotten? That love is stronger than politics." New voice joined the conversation, one that made every crystalline in the hall immediately drop to one knee. Empress Celeste Velthari, Zara's mother, materialized from the crowd like a goddess made manifest. Her beauty was ageless, terrible and magnificent, and her presence seemed to fill the entire hall. "Rise," she commanded, and her subjects obeyed instantly. Her eyes, the same deep color as her daughter's, moved between Damon and Zara with an expression that was impossible to read. "Daughter, is what this human claims true? Do you love him?" Zara lifted her chin with royal pride, but her voice trembled with emotion. "Yes, mother. I love him more than life itself." The Empress studied Damon with the intensity of someone who could see into souls. "And you, human, you would risk everything. For my daughter? I would die for her," Damon replied without hesitation. "I would live for her. I would cross every star in the galaxy to keep her safe." "Pretty words," Lord Kyvan sneered. "But what can a primitive human offer that I cannot provide 1,000-fold?" Damon turned to face him, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of every human who had ever defied impossible odds. "I can offer her something you never could, a love that sees her as an equal, not a possession, a partnership built on respect, not ownership, and the promise that every day of her life she will know she is cherished for who she is, not what she represents." The hall had fallen silent again, but this time it was the silence of people witnessing something profound. Empress Celeste moved closer to the unlikely couple, her expression softening almost imperceptibly. "For 3,000 years," she said, slowly, "our empire has arranged marriages to strengthen political alliances. But perhaps it is time to consider that true strength comes from unity freely given, not chains forged in ceremony." Admiral Torres stepped forward, her face showing the strain of trying to salvage a situation that had spiraled far beyond her control. "Your Majesty, while we appreciate the romantic sentiment, we must consider the political ramifications." "Must we?" General Blackwood interjected. "Admiral, I've been watching these negotiations for weeks. Both sides want the same thing: peace, prosperity, and security for their people. But we've been so focused on treaties and trade agreements that we've forgotten the most powerful force in the universe." "And what force is that?" High Counselor Nethys asked, his ancient voice heavy with skepticism. "Love," Blackwood said simply. "Two young people from different worlds have found something pure and powerful despite everything trying to keep them apart. Maybe instead of fighting it, we should be asking what we can learn from it." Commander Jade Morrison had moved closer during the exchange, and now she added her voice to the growing chorus of support. "I've known Damon Cross for 8 years. I've never seen him back down from a fight when something mattered to him. And I've never seen him fight harder for anything than he's fighting for her right now." Zara reached out and took Damon's hand, their fingers intertwining naturally despite the vast differences in their physiology. Where their skin touched, a soft glow emanated, as if the universe itself was blessing their union. "Look at them," General Blackwood continued. "Really look. They're not just two individuals. They're proof that our species can be more than allies of convenience. They can be family." Lord Kyvan's voice cut through the growing sentiment like a blade. "This is madness. You would throw away millennia of tradition for a fleeting infatuation?" "Not infatuation," Zara said firmly, her royal training finally serving a purpose she chose. "Love. The kind of love that poets write about and warriors die for. The kind that could unite not just two people, but two civilizations." Empress Celeste studied her daughter for a long moment, then turned her ageless gaze to Damon. "Human, if I were to allow this union, what assurance could you give that it would benefit both our peoples?" Damon straightened, drawing on every ounce of confidence that had carried him through battles among the stars. "Your Majesty, I can't promise that love alone will solve every political problem, but I can promise that Zara and I will spend our lives proving that humans and crystallines can be partners in every sense of the word. We'll be living proof that our species don't have to fear each other. And our children," Zara added, her voice growing stronger with each word, "will be bridges between worlds, carrying the best of both civilizations in their blood." The mention of children sent another ripple through the assembly. The biological implications alone were staggering. If humans and crystallines could indeed produce offspring, it would revolutionize everything both species thought they knew about genetics and evolution. High Counselor Nethys spoke carefully. "The scientific implications alone would require extensive study." "Science can wait," Empress Celeste said with final authority. Love cannot. She moved to stand directly in front of Damon and Zara, her presence both beautiful and terrifying. I have ruled for over a millennium. I have seen wars that devastated star systems and peace treaties that lasted mere decades. But I have never seen two people look at each other the way you two do. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute decision. Lord Khyven, your suit is declined. My daughter will choose her own path. Khyven's face went through a series of expressions: shock, rage, and finally cold calculation. This is not over, he promised, his voice like winter wind. Houses will not forget this insult. Let them remember it, Empress Celeste replied with regal indifference. And let them remember that love proved stronger than their schemes. As Khyven stormed from the hall followed by his retinue, the remaining assembly began to buzz with conversation. But Damon only had attention for Zara, who was looking at him with wonder and joy and a love so pure it took his breath away. So, Admiral Torres said dryly, I suppose we need to plan a different kind of ceremony. General Blackwood grinned, her weathered face transforming with genuine happiness. I think I know just the person to officiate. After all, if we're making history, we might as well do it right. The wedding of Captain Damon Cross and Princess Zara Velthari took place 3 days later in the same hall, but the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. Representatives from both species attended not as suspicious rivals, but as witnesses to something beautiful and unprecedented. Commander Jade Morrison served as Damon's best woman, while Zara's cousin, Prince Valdris, stood as her honor guard. The ceremony itself was a blend of human and crystalline traditions, creating something entirely new and perfect for the couple it was designed to honor. When they exchanged vows, promising to love each other across the vast distances between stars, there wasn't a dry eye in the assembly. And when they kissed to seal their union, the glow that emanated from their joined hands spread throughout their bodies, creating a light show that would be remembered for generations. 6 months later, the first joint human crystalline colony ship launched toward a distant star system that both species would call home. Damon piloted the ship with his characteristic skill, while Zara served as chief diplomatic officer, ensuring that the colonists from both species learned to work and live together. Their love story had become legend, but more importantly, it had become foundation. Children from both species grew up learning about the pilot and the princess who proved that love really could conquer all. And in the quiet moments between their public duties, when they stood together watching new worlds being born among the stars, Damon and Zara knew they had found something worth more than empires. They had found each other. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder of all was that two souls from different worlds could become one heart beating, in harmony across the void. Love had indeed conquered all, and the stars themselves sang their approval.